It's hashtag tiny housing. I think it's volume 17. I don't even know. I can't keep track. I really don't even know what day it is anymore. So, oh my goodness. Miserable weather today. 2 straight weeks in a row and then some. Miserable weather. Miserable weather in Houston, Texas. It feels like, I can't say it feels like New York winter because that would just be a lie. But it's been winter here for 2 straight weeks. I moved into this tiny house. It was like 80 degrees. It was warm, sunny, day after day after day. For the first week I was in this place, it was beautiful weather. And then, boom, ice cold. 20 degrees, 30 degrees, 20 degrees, 40 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees. Rain, rain, rain. Cloudy every day. Frigid. Supposed to be cold tomorrow. I want to go to the Boxmart church and or possibly the Lutheran church. But the Lutheran church has regular Lutheran service at early in the morning. And I don't know, that it just seems like Catholic church. The way, it's like from the, I don't know, from what I was looking at, it just seems kind of lame. And then they have contemporary service at 11 a.m. Boxmart church is 11:30, so if I'm going to pick one or the other, I think I'm going to go to the Boxmart church. But I don't even know if I'm going to go. If the weather is miserable, I'm going to be so unmotivated to do anything. Till I see that sun again, until I see warm weather, until I see heat. And just the depression, the winter depression is real. That is a real thing, man. Winter depression. The lack of sunshine is bad enough. Combine that with cold, miserable weather. I'm in Houston, Texas, and I can't take winter. I would fall apart every year in Pittsburgh. I didn't have to spend winters in Jamestown, New York, but I had to spend time there in the winter. And it's misery, pure misery. But here in Houston, this winter has been miserable. I don't even know, man. I don't even know if I can live in the United States for winter anymore. I might have to move to the equator just so I can deal with winter. I don't know. It's bad. It's bad. I am at the point where everybody tells me Houston is so awful in the summer. And I was reading some internet posts about people who moved to Houston from New York, ironically. And one of the commenters said, you don't have to get out a shovel and shovel humidity out of your driveway. You don't have to dig your car out of humidity just to get to work in the fucking morning. So, but that same person said that after one summer living in Houston, they have to wear a parka when it's colder than 60 degrees outside. So I don't know what this is going to do to me living here, but I'm ready for the heat. I'm fine. I've done it. I can stay in Florida. I spent 10 days camping in Florida with my son outside. I've done this more than once in Florida. Camping outside in the middle of summer, July, Florida tropical heat. As far south as Key West, as far north as Jacksonville. And what's the Fernandina Beach, which is just on the opposite line of the Georgia border. I've been everywhere in Florida, camping outside all summer. I can do that. Don't necessarily enjoy it when it's 95 degrees with 99% humidity. It's not my favorite. But I will pick that 32 degrees and snowing. I will pick 99% humidity at 95 degrees versus 32 degrees and snowing every single time. I will pick the heat and humidity every time. I'm done with winter. So, anyway, let me flip the camera around. What's up? It's your boy Adam. It is Tiny Housinʼ volume, I think it's 18. I'm never going to actually know until I put the title together, especially when I'm so shot out in the head right now. I look exactly how I feel. I decided to sleep in as long as my body would allow today, and that meant that I woke up at 7 in the morning. Yeah, but my Garmin says that I got a good night's sleep, especially compared to last night, or the night before last, I mean. So it's all good. It's pouring rain all day long today. It's freezing cold, probably like 30 degrees. I don't know, it sucks. This weather has just been nonstop shit for over 2 weeks now, and it's just bad. It's just bad. I'm over it. I'm over the winter. It's supposed to be like 83 degrees in a few days. I don't know if you can even hear, but when it's pouring rain, you can hear it on the roof of the tiny house just banging down. Just another of the negative things about it. But like I said, there's positive and there's good and bad about this tiny house situation. But one of the things that I've been thinking about today, and it's I watched a bunch of different videos today. I was reading a lot of different things and reading your comments, and a couple of people, I've gotten this comment over and over again. Why don't you get an e-bike? You can ride your e-bike to and from work, and it'll be a little bit faster, and it'll be you won't be as tired at the end of the day. And so, yeah, of course I've thought about that. There are lots of different options when it comes to electric bicycles. And I think I'm not an expert on this. I've never ridden one. I don't even know. It's like I'm going to talk about what I know just from research and just some thoughts that I have, and part of the reason why I don't have one already. And I'm going to talk about the one that I would choose. I'm going to break down the electric bikes into 4 categories. But before I do that, I think the pros and the cons are this. An electric bike is a good alternative if you can't afford a car. In some cases, you can get some decent deals on an electric bicycle. The drawbacks, in general, without breaking them down into the categories, are what do you do when the battery doesn't hold a charge anymore? And the battery is defective, you need to replace the battery. All of a sudden, you might have an expense that costs more than the bicycle in the first place. I told you all about looking at cars. I opened up Carvana. I got pre-approved for a ridiculously high interest rate, but if I can get a ridiculously cheap enough car, I still might be able to work with that. I don't know if I want to go to Carvana. It was just an idea. It's a quick way to get an idea of what's out there, what things cost, and what you can afford, and what you can expect. I could go to one of these shitty will finance anybody car dealers and get a car. There's a lot of different pathways I can take to get a car. But one experience or one thing that I saw on Carvana, one of the cheapest cars that constantly showed up was the Smart 4.2 electric car. Now, the tiny little smart car, it's normally they're gas-powered cars, but they do make an electric version of that. You can get this thing for like $7,000 to $9,000. It's one of the cheapest cars they sell on Carvana. So if you want a cheap electric car to go get your groceries or whatever, and you've got the means to keep it charged, maybe that's a good option. I don't know. If you just want a little zip around town car to get you to and from work, you have a job that's 10 miles away, you want to drive, it might be a good option for somebody. But here's the thing. I looked up how much does it cost to replace the battery in the Smart 4.2 car when your battery doesn't hold a charge anymore or there's a problem with charging it. It's $30,000. It's $30,000 to replace the fucking battery in a $8,000 car. So get the fuck out of here. No, I'm not going to buy an electric car for $9,000. Oh, I'll save all that money on gas until I need a new battery, and the new battery is going to be 30 grand. They're making cars to be disposable, like cell phones and like everything else. You use it once, you use it a few times, and you throw it away. You'll have a perfectly good car that's perfectly mechanically sound in every way, shape, or form, but it needs a new battery and you have to throw it away because the battery costs 3 times more than the car. So I look at electric bicycles the same way. And I have seen there are electric bicycles you can get on the used market right now. There was, and I'm going to break down the categories in a minute, but there was one that I was looking at. It was like $1,500. Good one. Top speed of about 50, 60 miles an hour with a range of about 30 miles if you're driving it like that. Looked up the cost of a battery, about $1,200 for the battery. So you pay $1,500 for a bicycle that's electric, and when the battery doesn't work anymore, you're out another $1,200 on top of all the wear and tear and everything that comes with buying a used bicycle. So the second thing is just, aside from the cost of the battery, what happens when it breaks? What happens when the motor goes bad? There's a problem with the electronics. There's a problem with the motor. How do you fix that? How do you get replacement parts? A lot of these things are proprietary. They're built, they're one and done. The company might not be around anymore. All the parts are proprietary. If you break the motor in this specific brand of electric bike, you're going to have to buy that specific motor, that specific wheel, that specific part for that specific bike. When my Cannondale, when my Red Rocket breaks, if I break a part on that bike, I can go to just about any bike shop in America and get the part right on the spot without even having to order it. And there are multiple options to pick from to replace whatever part breaks on that bike. That bike can always be easily maintained. It can always be kept in great condition. And there are so many parts available on the market. You know, either ordering from Amazon, Bike Nash Bar, or whatever other distributor of bicycle parts exists, eBay, other things like that. Or I can go to just about any bicycle shop and get the part that I need. I decided to buy a new back wheel for my bike because I broke 2 spokes in a single ride. And I thought I was in trouble. I thought my wheel was just about to fall apart. So I bought a bunch of spokes and I bought an extra wheel. Reasonably priced. I got the wheel for like $70. And I bought a bunch of spokes for the old wheel. I was going to put the new wheel on the bike, replace the spokes on the old wheel, and just use it as a spare. Well, I didn't have time to do all of that because there's more work involved than just changing a tire and swapping the wheels. You got to make sure the brakes are adjusted properly, that, you know, everything might not line up just right. So I was in a hurry. I replaced the 2 broken spokes without having to take the wheel off the bike. Trued up the wheel. Wheel's been fine ever since. I've been putting serious amounts of miles on that same wheel, and I haven't had a single issue with the wheel since that day. So I don't know, just weird bad luck. But the point is, I was able to go to a bike shop. They had a wheel right there. Boom, here's a wheel. Here's the spokes. Here's all the parts you need. Done. Out the door, everything's good. Didn't even have to wait and order and have things delivered from an online order. Try to do that with an electric bicycle when your specific motor, your specific controller, your specific wiring harness, whatever the case may be, you have a problem with something like that, you're going to be in a world of shit. Another thing with an electric bicycle, try getting the wheel off. If you get a flat tire on your way to or here, you know, and you got to pull over to the side of the road because you got a flat tire. You saw me get a flat tire a few videos ago. I pulled over to the side of the road, popped my back wheel off, put a new inner tube in, put some air in the tire, put the wheel back on. I was ready to go in 15 minutes, and the only reason it took me 15 minutes is because I was dragging my ass, I was taking my time with it, and I shot a little bit of a video to tell you what was going on. I didn't, sit there and document the whole thing because I didn't want to be sitting there for half an hour. But without shooting a video, I'd have been in and out in 10 minutes. Irritated, 10 minutes that I'm, going to be longer getting home, but it would have taken 10 minutes. It just happened to be nice out that day. It was probably 75 degrees when it happened. It wasn't like I was freezing cold. It wasn't like it was raining. So 10 minutes, pop, pop, gone. Wait until you're riding an electric bike where they're heavy and you got to take that back wheel off and it's all bolted on and there's a bunch of wires you got to disconnect and there's all kinds of crap in the way and you can't just get the thing off. And then changing the tire and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then getting the whole thing put back together and back all white and clipped. Like, that could be a nightmare to be stuck with a flat tire on an electric bicycle somewhere, unable to fix it. It don't matter that the thing can go 50, 60 miles an hour if you're stuck on the side of the road with a flat tire at that point, right? So there's basically 4 types of e-bikes that you see out there. Type number 1, it's an electric dirt bike. It's a motorcycle. It's an electric motorcycle. There's no pedals. There's no crank arms. There's 2 pegs, just like a motorcycle, and you've got a twist grip throttle on the handlebars, and that thing just flies. There's one called a Suron. That's a popular model. These bikes, a lot of them, they can go 50, 60, sometimes 75 miles an hour. Decent range, but there's no pedaling involved. It looks like a motorcycle. It feels like a motorcycle. You're on an electric motorcycle. Number 1 problem that you're going to have with that is the cops. You're basically sitting on a cop magnet at that point. If you try taking an electric motorcycle like that down the highway, down a road, down a bicycle path, there's no place that you can ride that thing without a cop seeing you and being like, woo, woo, blue lights. You're going to, no matter, if the thing goes 75 miles an hour, that's great. But you're going to take twice as long to get anywhere because you're going to get pulled over by the cops every 20 minutes, everywhere you go. And then they're going to tell you, they're going to argue about whether it's legal or not because they don't really know. Nobody really knows. And then they're going to tell you, you can't have this on the road without a license plate, without a registration, without insurance, just like a car, just like a real motorcycle. They're going to tell you you need a motorcycle license to drive it. Then you're going to go to the DMV and they're going to say, well, we can't give you a title for that. We can't give you a registration and a license plate for that. That's not even a legal vehicle at this point. Doesn't have a VIN number. So you're basically just in a legal hellhole where you basically can't ride this thing without bringing all kinds of problems to yourself. So right there, cross that off, electric motorcycle, done. They might be fun, but you're going to be in a world of shit if you try to drive one of these things on the streets and on the bike trails. Now, to get around that, some of these electric motorcycles are what I call the Type 2. It's an electric motorcycle with crank arms and pedals. It's an electric motorcycle disguised as an e-bike, as an electric bicycle. But it's still pretty fucking obvious. It still looks like a motorcycle. One of the models that I've looked at, I've seen them on Facebook Marketplace used, $1,500 roundabouts, $5,000 new. It's called the Stealth Bomber, the Stealth E-Bomber, or the Stealth Bomber. I've seen reviews of these things on YouTube, people flying around at 50, 60 miles an hour. Now, you got 2 options when you buy the Stealth Bomber. You can get a motorcycle seat. It looks like a motorcycle, seat-wise. The whole thing looks like a motorcycle at that point, except it's got pedals and crank arms, so you can actually pedal the thing and get somewhere by pedaling it. So legally, that might make it a e-bicycle. So now you can take it on the road, you can take it on the bike paths, etc. And even if you get pulled over by Johnny Law, you've got pedals and crank arms. You can say, this is a bicycle, officer. I don't need a, and you still might get hassled, but you're one step towards legality by having pedals and crank arms. But here are the two problems you're going to have with this. Number one, has range of about 30 miles before the battery dies. The thing weighs like 75 pounds or something crazy like that. So, if the battery dies and you got to pedal this fucking thing, you're in a world of shit. The pedals suck, the crank arms suck, they're garbage. And if you have a motorcycle seat stuck to this thing, the motorcycle seat option, you're going to be all squatted down. You're not going to be in the correct position to pedal a bicycle, and you're going to be squatted down. You're not going to be able to extend your legs properly to pedal like it's a real bicycle. You're not going to be in the right position, and you're going to blow out your knees trying to pedal home a 75-pound bicycle at this point because the motor's dead. And so it might be fun to zoom around on an electric, micro crotch rocket or whatever you want to call it. But it's still an electric motorcycle disguised as a bicycle at that point. Now, if you're, I thought about getting one. $1,500 on Craigslist or on Facebook Marketplace or either or. And it goes that fast. Well, for me to go 20 miles each way to work, 21 miles each way to work, that means I got to plug it in when I'm at work. So now I got to bring a charger with me. I got to bring other shit with me. I got to find a place to plug it in. I got to bring a electric motorcycle into a bakery and find a place to plug it in there. That's not going to fly. And so, plus, because it's not going to have the range, I'm going to get halfway home and I'm going to have to pedal the rest of the way a 75-pound dirt bike squatted down on a motorcycle seat so that my knees blow out because I can't straighten out my leg while I'm pedaling. Maybe I can put clipless pedals on and use bicycle shoes so that I can get a little more efficiency. But I've pedaled a 60-pound bicycle before when it's all loaded down on a trip. And that was my Red Rocket Cannondale that you see in the videos. I've had that bike weigh 60 pounds with all the gear and the camping gear and the food and everything loaded on for a long ride. And that's not fun to ride. And that's a real bicycle that's efficient and has gears and everything else. And so I mean, it would be fun as hell to ride one of those around town, don't get me wrong. But unless I can keep my distance under the 30-mile limit, it's only going to get me so far. And once again, if I get a flat tire, that bike looks like it would be a nightmare to change a flat tire on, front or rear, big time. Like, it does not look like something I want to deal with. So I'm going to have to put sealant inside the inner tube if it has an inner tube. Probably doesn't have tubeless tires, so I'm going to have to put sealant inside the inner tube. That way if I run over a nail or something happens and I lose air, at least I might have a chance to get home. But there's a lot of problems, a lot more problems than the bike's going to solve potentially. So then you got number 3, and I don't know what to call this one, but kind of like a moped, an electric moped / scooter / the way I would describe this, a lot of the cheaper e-bikes fall into this category. It's more of a bicycle. It's definitely a bicycle more than a motorcycle. You've crossed the line on Type 3 where it's a bicycle, but it's not a good bicycle. If the motor wasn't there, it would be the shittiest bicycle you've ever ridden. Slow, heavy, cheap parts. It's like they take an electric motor and a big battery and strap it to a garbage huffy bicycle. A lot of these electric bikes fall into that category. I've seen them all over the place. They're definitely, like, you can take that thing on the bicycle trail. You can take it on the roads. No cop's going to pull you over because it looks like a bicycle or it looks like a bike. A lot of them have no top tube. They're more shaped like the best. I mean, it's almost like you're riding an electric Vespa, just the riding style, but it has pedals and crank arms. Some of them they're all a little bit different. And there's tons of them out there, but when you look at the frame welds, when you look at the quality of the actual parts on the bike, it's basically a Walmart Huffy with a motor and a throttle and a battery added to it. So you're getting a cheap $500 e-bike that's basically the same as a $100 bicycle at Walmart. It's going to fall apart. once again, if the motor dies, if the battery dies, pedaling this thing home is going to be a nightmare, but it's going to be better than riding an electric motorcycle with an electric motorcycle seat trying to pedal it home. At least in the Type 3, you're on an actual bicycle with a motor versus an electric motorcycle with pedals. And so it's going to be more efficient to ride it home like a bicycle if you're forced into that situation. But most of those bikes have throttle control. You don't have to pedal. The bike will do all the work for you. You can zip around. You can combine your pedal force with the throttle. You can manage your power consumption that way. You can still get a workout, but a lot of the people I see zipping around on these things just twist the throttle and go. They don't pedal. And I see them all over the place because you can get these under $1,000. There's different levels of quality. There's so many options to pick from. I couldn't even begin to talk about it. One thing I didn't mention, or I did briefly, that Stealth Bomber, the motorcycle disguised as a bicycle, you can get that with a bicycle seat and a seat post that you can adjust up and down and fore and aft. And that looks a little bit more like a bicycle, like a mountain bike. It's starting to look like a mountain bike at that point. And it's still an electric motorcycle, but if you get the bicycle seat version and you had to pedal the thing home because the battery died or something went wrong, you'll have an easier time getting home with that thing than you would an electric motorcycle with pegs and no pedals and no way to pedal it. Your battery dies, you're walking. You're fucked. And these aren't meant to be pedaled. Even the Stealth Bomber's not meant to be a bike that you pedal. It's just there to fool the cops. So Type 3 is actually a bike. It's meant to be pedaled, but it's really not meant to be pedaled because they're heavy. Like I said, the quality is crap. The wheels are probably bolted on. If you get a flat tire, it's still going to be a pain to change it, but it's going to be doable. It's going to be a little bit better to ride around on one of those. The speed's not going to be as high, probably topping out at 30 miles an hour on those. Range is probably 30, 50 miles, give or take, between charges. But you're getting closer to like an actual bicycle. And then the fourth kind of bike, this is what I would get. The major bike companies, the professional level, high quality bicycle companies, you've got Specialized, you've got Trek, you've got Cannondale, and you've got, many other companies. And a lot of these companies make electric bicycles now. So on Facebook Marketplace right now, there are 4 different Specialized bicycles that are electric e-bikes for sale right now. One of them is $1,200 used. Brand new, it would have been about $5,000. There's one for sale right now, $1,200. I could go get it today. The reason why I would choose something like that is it's a Specialized. It's a good bike. My new bike I just picked up for $300 is Specialized. My mountain bike that's sitting up in Pittsburgh is a Specialized. It's my son has a Specialized mountain bike that he rode when he was younger. It's a little bit too small for him now, but Specialized is a really good bike company. They make quality bicycles. These electric bikes that these cycling companies build, they're not twist the throttle and go bicycles. They're what's called pedal-assisted bicycles. So there's a motor and there's a throttle that you can adjust to some extent, but what they do is multiply your pedaling power into extra wattage to boost your speed based on how fast you're willing and how hard you're willing to crank on those pedals. So for me, going to my job, I average somewhere between 15 and 20 miles an hour. If I hopped on this Specialized to go to the same job, I'm going to average about 20 to 25 miles an hour, maybe even 25 to 30 miles an hour for the same amount of effort that it takes me physically to go the 15 to 20 miles an hour. So I'm going to put in the same level of work, but I'm going to get a 10 mile an hour boost out of it. If I have to climb a hill, the bike's going to do a lot of the work climbing the hill for me. So it's almost going to feel like I'm riding on flat terrain. The bike's going to actually give me power to go up that hill. So Specialized makes some really nice e-bikes. Number one, the battery weighs 8 pounds. The motor weighs a few pounds. You're going to get a you're probably going to be in the 25, maybe 30 pound max range. It's an actual bicycle. A 30-pound bicycle, if for some reason the battery goes dead, the motor dies, whatever the case may be, I can pedal that bike all the way home under no power from the battery and make it home. It's going to be a little bit crummy. It's not going to be as fast as a road racing bike, but I'm going to be able to do it. I'm going to be able to go up and down hills. I'm going to be able to ride it like a regular bicycle if the motor just died out or crapped out on me or stopped working or there's a problem or whatever. I'll be able to make it home. If I get a flat tire, this particular Specialized bike, front wheel is a quick release wheel. The back wheel has a through axle, which has a quick, easy way to you can take the back wheel off easy. There's a harness disconnect for the wire going to the rear motor. You have to take out the axle, which simple tools. You might need an Allen wrench for it. You might not. I didn't look at it that closely. But it's what's called a through axle. It's a little more secure than a quick release, but it's meant to be taken off in the field. And it's got rear disc brakes, so you have to line up the disc you have to line up the disc rotor with the disc caliper when you put the wheel on and off. But a well-built bike will guide you. It'll slide in very easily. So this is a bicycle. This is a bicycle with an electric motor to help you out. This isn't option number 3 is basically a motor and a throttle with a crappy bicycle attached to it. This is a high-end, option 4 is a high-end bicycle with a motor attached to it that helps you out. And it's all designed, and in this particular Specialized model, the throttle, it doesn't have a twist throttle. It has a controller on the handlebars. In the maximum power mode, where it's giving you the most boost for your buck, it will get you from point A to B. It'll last about 50 miles on the maximum power output setting without being recharged. That's number 1. You can put it on like 50% power, so it's only giving you a small boost. And you can probably get a range of 100 miles that way. Another interesting thing on the Specialized bike, in particular, is it has regeneration feature. So if you're coasting downhill, you can program the controller so that when you're coasting downhill and it senses that you're not pedaling and you're coasting, it will use the inertia and the energy generated from coasting downhill to recharge the battery while you're going downhill. It has regenerative braking, so when you hit the brakes, it activates the motor to act as a dynamo and slow you down. So it will turn on a magnet inside the motor that slows you down using basically electric engine braking, which will save your brake pads a little bit too, but it will slip a little bit of power back into your battery as you're doing it. Now, it's not going to be enough to recharge your battery. Like if your battery is completely dead and you have to pedal this thing in regenerative mode, you might have to pedal for 3 days to get a battery back up to charge. But let's just say your battery dies on your way home and you put it in regenerative mode and you're able to build back like a 3 to 5% charge over a span of miles, and then you come to a hill climb. You might be able to flick on the battery and use that 5% to get you up the hill with a little bit of a boost, and then the battery dies again. You put it in regenerative mode, you coast down the other side of the hill and ride the flats, for a while and rebuild maybe a 3 to 5% charge, and then you get like a little turbo boost. It's like playing a racing video game where you get the nitrous button, but you can only use it once in a 4-lap race. So you might be able to build up a little bit of boost in your bike that you can use for a quick burst to help you get up a hill. maybe there's a hill on your way home that sucks. Even though my battery's dead, maybe I can build up a boost charge so when I get to that hill, I boost my way up. And then when I crest the hilltop, the battery's dead and I gotta ride the rest of the way home. On the e-bikes, on the fourth option, I think Trek makes them. There a bunch of companies make these things, but it looks like an actual bicycle. You would have to actually look at this thing carefully to figure out that it's an electric bike compared to the first two options, which looked like motorcycles. So the cops are going to leave you alone. Nobody's going to bother you. Most people you encounter aren't even going to know you're on an electric bike unless, like I said, they look at it closely. The battery is integrated well into the frame where it doesn't even really look out of place. It doesn't look like a big block stuck to the bike. It doesn't look like, you've got this big thing that looks like a motorcycle engine, but it's actually a big giant battery. It's slim. It fits with the bike. The battery weighs 8 pounds for the Specialized bike, and the rear motor I'm sure the rear wheel weighs a little bit. But without that stuff, the bike would probably be sub 20 pounds. With all that stuff, my guess, 25, 30 pounds. Maybe less. I don't really know. Like I said, I'm not an expert on these things. But based on everything I've done research-wise, I think your best bet would be to save up and buy a bicycle that's from a bicycle manufacturer, a well-known quality bicycle manufacturer like Specialized or Trek or GT or Cannondale or there 20 other brands to pick from, and I think you would be better off buying something like that. When it comes to the bicycle parts themselves, readily replaceable. Rear derailleur, easy to replace because it's a standard rear derailleur. Standard chain, standard drivetrain, the brakes, the calipers, the pads, all of the different parts on the bicycle are bicycle parts. You have the addition of a motor, wiring harnesses, a throttle controller, and a rear wheel with a motor built in. But otherwise, it's a bicycle. It's a quality bicycle, and you can pretty much deal with it anywhere. One of the other drawbacks to having e-bikes, a lot of bicycle shops, if you can't work on this thing yourself, bike shops won't touch them. They just don't want to deal with the hassle. And even with the Specialized bike, if something breaks that's specific to the electric bike itself, the wheel goes bad, the motor, the battery, all those things are specifically manufactured by Specialized, proprietary to that specific bicycle. So that's going to be a problem. I looked it up. The battery is anywhere from $800 to $1,200 for a new battery for that bike. Battery, right there. So if you get one for $1,200 on Facebook Marketplace and the battery doesn't hold a charge anymore, well, guess what? Now you got to spend another $1,200 on a battery, and you're at $2,200 there, plus whatever other money you had to put into it. You're almost halfway to the cost of a brand new one. And you can probably get a discount on a brand new one if you buy last year's model or you find a good deal at a bike shop somewhere. But those are my thoughts on the electric bikes. And then I was watching a video, and they were talking about this woman in this video. This relates to the title of today's video. So now that you know a little bit about electric bikes, I know a little bit about them because I'm interested in one, and if I had all the money out, if I had enough money, I would go out and buy one just to have. But I wouldn't just go out and buy one just to have. I would have to have justification. I would have to have an actual use for it. But the Specialized e-bike that I saw, if I can cover twice the distance for the same amount of effort, I'm still getting a workout. I'm still out there riding a bicycle, making my heart rate go up, and doing all the things that you got to do to ride a bicycle, and getting wet, being out in the elements, in the weather, heart rate, boom, 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 boom. And I've still got to pedal, and I've still got to break a sweat, and I've still got to, put effort into this. It's just that the bicycle is going to help me go 2 to 3 times the same distance for the same amount of time and effort that I'm putting in. So it takes me however long it takes to go the 21 miles to work. I could have a job 40 miles away and not take that much longer to get there on a bicycle like that. Granted, I'm going to have to plug it in and charge it while I'm there, but I would be able to cover twice the distance in almost the same amount of time, in, relatively speaking, but probably I'm exaggerating a little bit there, but I would be able to cover more distance for the same amount of effort that it takes to go what I'm doing right now. And hills wouldn't be in it, there's a lot of, I know a guy who was trying to lose weight, and he was thinking about getting a regular mountain bike, and he ended up getting an electric mountain bike, and he said it was the best thing he ever did. But it was a high-end mountain bike company with an electric mountain bike, so it's an actual bike, pedal assisted, no throttle to just twist and go. You have to pedal it. And he said it was the best thing he ever bought, because he would go on mountain bike rides 20, 25 miles on trails, difficult trails, in difficult mountains, through the woods, etc. And he would come home covered in sweat and burning all kinds of calories. And he said that if he had bought a regular mountain bike, he would have given up in a week, because he would have felt just as beat up and just as sore and just as tired and miserable going 5 miles on a regular mountain bike than he did going 25 miles on the e-bike, the pedal-assisted bike. But because he was able to cover so much ground for the same amount of effort, it was fun, and he enjoyed it, and he actually went out and rode the bicycle regularly. 25 miles here, 25 miles there, 30 miles there. He got a solar panel to charge it with so he could ride 20 miles, unfold a solar panel for a couple hours, charge some of it back up, get back on, ride another 20 miles. And he said that if he had a regular bicycle that had no motor to assist him, and he could only cover 10 miles for the same effort, and having to climb every hill without, going about 1 mile an hour because he's so out of shape, he said he would have given up in about 2 weeks, put the bike up, and never ridden it again. And so that made me think, I'm in shape, I can do that stuff, but imagine being able to go twice as far for the same amount of effort. That, there's something to be said there. And in terms of being able to commute to and from a job, there's something to be said there. But I've really come to the conclusion, just based on all my research and just looking into everything and knowing how hard or easy it is, I can fix just about any problem I encounter on my bicycles right now while I'm on a bicycle ride. It's rare. It's going to be extremely rare. I've gone thousands and thousands and thousands of miles on bicycles away from home, and I literally can't think of a time where I couldn't get home. I may have had to put my bicycle in limp mode to get home, but I can't think of a time where I couldn't get home because my bicycle broke. I may have had to do something a little unorthodox, or I may have had to baby it to get home. I broke a handlebar in half and just rode with half of a handlebar for hundreds of miles to get to the finish line instead of... I didn't even want to stop at a bicycle shop and get new handlebars because of the time it would take to change out the handlebars. I moved the brake levers, I moved everything over. It was goofy and it sucked, but I was like, it'll work until I get there. And then I'll come home, I'll buy new handlebars, I'll do it at home. I've been there, I've done that. So, on an electric bike, it's a little more complicated, and I think it's easier to get stranded on one of those. But if you're riding something like a specialized electric bike that's more of a bicycle than a motorbike, then anything that happens with the motor that you're not going to be able to fix on trail, or your dead battery, you'll still get home. An electric motorcycle is going to leave you stuck somewhere. You're going to get screwed. No doubt about that. Flat tires happen all the time. You're going to get a flat tire on a bike like that. You're not going to be able to change it out. You're going to get mad frustrated. You're going to have to figure out. Then you're going to have somebody come pick you up that can actually carry the thing home for you. That can get complicated. It may be more complicated for some of you than others, but that's more of a toy, in my opinion. An electric bicycle like the Specialized or a Trek or something like that that has a motor, that's more of a utilitarian. That's a tool in my book compared to a toy. That's actual transportation versus something that's fun to ride. So that's my thoughts on the subject. I don't have $1,200 to just buy an e-bike at this point. I'm riding regular bikes, and I'm fine with that. A lot less problems. Like Biggie said, more money, more problems. You got more parts on a bike, you got more problems on a bike. So that's my thoughts on electric bikes, but they do have a place. All four of those categories have a place. I'm not against any of them. I'm just saying if I was out there looking for one for myself, it would be a bicycle first, electric bike second. Just something that helps you pedal and helps you get more speed. With that, we'll talk later. Whoops, forgot. I know these videos are long. I try to keep them short, but I can't. I just talk too much. The analogy. I was watching a video today that I was already thinking of. I was looking at electric bikes today because I'm taking the day off. I'm just screwing around. I'm taking a day to just recharge. The weather's terrible. It's pouring rain. It's freezing cold. I slept in, which means I got up at 7. And that's it. Well, I started watching a video it was about this woman talking about how God works in your life. And she said a statement and I've said this many, many times, that God's not just going to sit around and like drop things into your lap. There's a lot of times where I'll tell you in my video, God just made this thing fall out of the sky. It fell into my lap. But in reality, no, it didn't just fall into my lap. I still had to go out and do something. I had to get off my ass. I had to go out and look for a job. I had to go out and make a phone call. I had to go out and do the thing. I had to fill out job applications. I had to make phone calls. I had to network. I had to do something to make something happen. And she was talking about the same thing, saying that, God wants to do great things in your life, but he's sometimes waits for you to take action. You have to take action, but God is going to be there with you. It's like a power boost. It's like a partner in crime. It's like you're not going to be alone when you're doing it. You're going to get a boost. And it was the exact analogy of riding that specialized e-bike that I'm talking about. That bike's not going to do nothing for you. If you just sit on the bike and you tell it, go, come on, go. You can beat it with a stick. You can yell at it. You can push the buttons on the throttle controller. You can do all kinds of stuff, and it's not going to move. It's not going to move 2 inches on its own. But if you start pedaling that bike at a speed where you can, if you're pedaling that bike at a level of effort that it takes to pedal a regular bicycle to go 10 miles an hour, that bike's going to go 25 miles an hour. When you start pedaling with just a little bit of effort, the bike's going to kick in, and it's going to send you flying down the trail, down the road. So you put in 10 miles an hour worth of effort, the bike's going to give you 25 miles an hour on the road. And that's the exact analogy of what God does in your life. When you are going the direction he wants you to go, if you are going after something that's within his will for you to have, then all you got to do is start pedaling, going down the road. God's not an electric motorcycle. You don't just twist the throttle and expect him to take you. He probably won't. I mean, that's my personal experience. If I just sit there on my ass saying, God, do it. God, do it. Please, God, do this. Good, do this, God. Please do this. He doesn't do anything. Just sits there like a dead horse. But instead, if you get the e-bike with the pedal assist, like Specialized sells, all you got to do is start pedaling and go down the road. And the bike takes over. God takes over, and he gives you a boost. So for the level of effort that you're putting in to go 10 miles an hour, you find that you're flying down this road at 25 miles an hour and you're hardly putting any effort in. And that's because God jumps in and he gives you a power boost and he takes you where you need to go, and he takes away your burden for his what does he say, for his burden is light, his yoke is not heavy, and his burden is light, or whatever. He takes, if you're carrying a heavy burden, he'll come in and he'll lift that for you, and he'll lighten the load so that you can go faster, so that you can get where you're going. He'll remove obstacles in your way, and he'll make things happen, and he'll time things. He'll set up the timing for things to be uncanny. And and a lot of times in my life, he'll do things in such a way that at the end of the day, I can't take any credit for it. There are so many times, I've told you so many stories on these videos where God jumped in and did something. I woke up one morning on a random early March, Tuesday morning, and I said at 7 in the morning, I think I'm going to go clean out the Mini Cooper, and I'm going to put it up. My goal for the end of the day is to take a bunch of pictures, go clean out the Mini Cooper at the car wash it, clean out the inside, take a bunch of photos, and put it up for sale and have it listed for sale by the end of the day. That was at 7 in the morning. I had that intention for the day. 9 o'clock in the morning, boom, 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 there's a knock on the door. And I wouldn't have even heard the knock on the door if I wasn't already awake. I was getting my coffee. I was just chilling out. I didn't have a job at the time. This is part of the reason why I was selling the car, to get some extra money. And I was just getting ready to get up because there was still snow all over the ground. And I was going to have to go get the car, start it up. It might not start. I might have to charge the battery. I've been sitting for a couple of months, unfortunately. Normally, I would drive it all winter whenever the roads weren't covered in snow and ice, but we had a 2-month streak where the snow and ice just wouldn't melt. We could not get one good day. And so I didn't drive the car for a minute. And normally I wouldn't let it sit that long. Well, anyway, I answer the door, and it's the guy who mows my lawn, and I'm thinking, boy, he's really here early this year. Like, I just thought he was going around to all his customers, making sure he was lining up his business for the summer, making sure that everybody whose lawn he does is still willing to have him come cut the grass. And I'm like, of course. But I answer the door, and he goes to me, he's like, yeah, I was just in the neighborhood today, and I thought I'd stop over and see if you want to sell that Mini Cooper. And I'm like, well, I really love that car, and, I was planning on keeping it for, and I went through that whole thing. I'm like, well, but I guess I'll let it go. You give me tell you what, if you take this much for it, or if you want to buy it for this much, I'll let it go. I'll even go clean it out for you, etc. I mean, we'll make sure, blah, blah, blah. Throw in a few lawn cuts on top of that, and we got it. He's like, okay, deal. I swear to God, I didn't even have time to go get my personal stuff out of it, charge the battery. I charged the battery. I drove into town. I cleaned it up a little bit, came home. I didn't even have time to get all my stuff out of it. He was back at my house with the money, cash. And he's like, come on, we got to get down to the notary before they close and get the title switched over. I'm like, Jesus, okay. For real, Jesus. Jesus, what did you do? All I did was wake up and say I was going to sell the car. I took that step mentally. I mean, this time it was a mental step. I got myself up. I said, today before the end of the day, I'm going to get that car ready and I'm going to put it up for sale. And what does God do? He shows up and he goes, okay, here, it's gone. Here's the money. Done. I had to get up and make the decision that I was going to sell that car that day. But as soon as I did, God was like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get you the buyer. I'm going to bring him over to your house. I'm going to make it all. By the end of the day, you're going to have the money in your hand, and you're going to wonder how the hell that even happened. And then you're going to look at me and say it was all you. Like, I didn't do it. I didn't do that. That was God. God did that. And So that's how God works a lot of the time. Like, you take one small step in the right direction that you're supposed to go, and God shows up with an electric motor, and that kicks in, and you put in 10 miles an hour worth of effort, and God kicks in, and you're going 30 miles an hour, and you didn't even realize it. You're putting in almost no effort, and you're just flying down the road. And so, yeah, God is like an electric bike. God is basically an e-bike. And so that's where I got the title for today's message. And with that, I'm going to let you go.